Hello there, friends. This is Spencer Michaud, and today we're going to be talking about the full moon in the first decan of Capricorn. I hope that you're having a wonderful Friday afternoon and a wonderful Mercury Cazimi today as we are recording this on Friday, June the 14th. So we have Mercury Cazimi coming together, Mercury coming together with the Sun at 24 degrees of Gemini. So hopefully there's some wonderful insights for you today, and hopefully I'll help you along with your journey as well. If you are here with me live, please let me know and put it in the chat and say hello and tell me where you're joining me from. A couple announcements before we get to everything today. So we're going to be going over all of the nuances of the new and the full moons. We are going to be, the full moon, not the new moon. And we're going to be kind of breaking it down piece by piece, little by little. Before we get to that, I do want to make a few announcements. 2024 offerings, friends. If you are new to the channel, hi, I'm Spencer. Nice to meet you. We try to create a supportive space for everyone here, and I also strive for that in my readings. I am a professional astrologer, and you can find me at spencermichaud.com. If you like the astrological methods that I use here in these live streams, many of them are very similar for a natal reading, so you can reach out and look at the Book Now button if you need guidance through some of these challenging times, especially in regards to your own personal narrative or timing of events. So check that out at spencermichaud.com. I also have extended sign up for our guided group study / book club. We still have a few spots available, and we had a really nice meetup the first time, but we are still getting rolling. So if you missed the boat and you're like, I really should have signed up for that, here's your second chance. We have a great group. We're doing a wonderful book called Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer, which really helps dive into some of the myths and narratives around ecology, and especially from an indigenous perspective. And we're going to try to ground that in the astrological turning of the year. It's a lot of fun. We have a Discord for discussion. We meet up every second and fourth Monday of the month for 4 months. So we're going up until September. So check that out. That's on my website, spencermichaud.com, as well. I also have the final days of Gemini season sale. So I have a series of webinars that I did that are related to the decans, and I have put them together in 2.5 to 3 hour increments. And this Decans of Gemini is on sale right now for 20% off. So you can get that until the end of Gemini season. So this is the last couple of days you can get the Gemini one on sale, and then the Cancer one will come up. So if you're waiting for that, it'll be up there soon. And it's a great way to support the work and support the channel that I'm doing here. I have a beautiful partner who is named Tanya Andrews, who has a wonderful magical business called Third Coast Mojo. She does some awesome astrologically elected offerings, and here she has one that she's featuring called the Crown of Horns, which is a version of Mars exalted in Capricorn. So if you've been feeling challenged by Mars in Taurus and its exile, having trouble getting moving, Mars and Capricorn oil might be a great remedy for that. So check her out on Etsy, Third Coast Mojo. And then finally, if you want to support the work that I'm doing here today, you can buy a super chat with a little $sign in the YouTube today live, or you can go to buymeacoffee.com and buy me a coffee after the fact. It really goes a long way to support the work I'm doing here, help fund equipment, time, resources, etc. And I'm super appreciative of all of your support. All right, friends, let's talk about this full moon, Capricorn. Welcome a few people in the chat here today. Rachel Fletcher is here. What's up, Rachel? Says Happy Venus Day from Roanoke, Virginia. Nice to see you, my friend. I hope you're doing well out there. Uranus Ascending is here. Says, hey, Spencer. Hey, what's going on over in Aurora, Illinois, I believe. Uranus Ascending. Nice to see you. Ani is here. What's up, Ani? Says, hey, Spencer and friends. Nice to see you, Ani. So we're going to be talking about this full moon. I did want to tell all of you that today we're going to be going over the details of the full moon. I have decided at this Mercury Cazimi that for today, we're going to be cutting out the rising signs at the end. We're going to still do the I-Ching, and we're still going to be doing the animal, but the rising signs, they've been taking too long in one particular sitting. And I think I'm running out of steam by the end of hour 3 or 4 trying to do these. So they may not be permanently gone. We may split them off into a different offering. Could be through the channel, could be through some sort of crowdfunding perk or something like that. But today we're going to just be going through the full moon itself. But if you have any questions about how this might affect you in your own personal chart, I'd be happy to answer those during the live stream as well. So this full moon in Capricorn, full moon. Yeah, Ani is saying, going to try to get my sluggish Mars in gear today. Mars in Taurus has been like kryptonite. I feel you. Mars in Taurus is all about inertia, Ani. It's about really like trying to get ourselves moving, but also slowing down when we need to stop as well. So think about that 1,000-pound animal, the bull, and trying to get it to do what it doesn't want to do. But getting it to slow down if it's angry or charging is difficult as well. So something to consider with Mars and Taurus. Robin Nadira is here. So what's up? Says, hi, Spencer. Robin from Hellsburg, California. Excited to hear about the full moon in Capricorn. Also glad to hear that there are still spots open in the book club. Yes, Robin. Would love for you to join us, my friend. There's a spot waiting for you. So I hope that you're able to find that information. Send me an email if you need any help, and I'd be happy to help you out, my friend. I'm looking forward to seeing you there. Ani says, don't wreck yourself, Spencer. Yeah, this is the thing. Like, and Rachel says, here for a Spencer Michaud membership opportunity. I've been talking about that for quite some time, and I'm thinking about that moving forward. I think for the most part, though, I want to make sure that I'm at my best when I'm doing these live streams, and that I am providing you with the most energetic analysis that I can. And when things start to feel like a slog at the end of a very long live stream, I think that, splitting that off into some kind of different offering, whatever form that might take, I think is going to be the best for the channel, best for myself, and especially like we're doing these in the late afternoon, and by that time I'm pretty hungry. My blood sugar is low, and I'm ready to eat, and I'm just trying to be done, and that's not the vibe I want to have here. I want to be excited about the things that I'm talking about. And I think that, we'll probably go about 2 hours or so today, something like that. We do still get into a lot of depth with the full moon. I try to be as detailed and thorough as possible. And I will try to teach you how to look at the moon or the lunations in a way that you can divine what it might mean for you personally. So I'll be teaching as we go. So that's why we take a little bit of our time and take a longer look at all of these things, because we're really trying to learn how to do astrology in the moment. So yeah. Ani says, personally, 3 hours is my max. 2 hours is better. Well, hopefully we'll find the sweet spot, right? We just have to be less chatty and stop distracting them. That's okay. I like talking with all of you. That's the thing that I really enjoy. I enjoy the interactions. So I want to keep that a feature of our channel here and the community that we're building, and being able to highlight some of your wisdom as well. So I think that that's, again, something I'm trying to keep on the channel, and by simplifying these lunation specific ones, I think that'll be helpful. I think we're probably still going to have a few marathon sessions when we do the astrology of the month, just because there's a lot of things to get to. But I think we can have a lot more discussions here with the new and full moons. I appreciate all of your support and understanding with all of that. Let's see. Okay, so we're going to talk about this full moon in Capricorn. I'm just going to show you the chart here. So let's take a look at it. So this is a full moon that is going to be happening directly after the summer solstice. So the sun's going to ingress or move into Cancer. And then we're going to almost immediately after that have a full moon. Now, one of the interesting features of this full moon is that both the sun and the moon are going to square Neptune before ingressing into their new sign. So we're going to have this moment of like dissolving, potentially confusion, maybe feeling a little bit of an energetic black hole. I think that's what I feel with Neptune. It just kind of saps the energy out of us. Astrologers would call it a solvent type of agent. It dissolves boundaries, but it also dissolves form. So we might have a form that is dissolved that hopefully will free us up to be able to understand what we need moving forward. The transition from Gemini to Cancer is really interesting to me, especially if I look at it from the perspective of the Thema Mundi, which is a teaching tool that ancient astrologers would use to help people understand the zodiac. And in the Thema Mundi, the natal chart, or the metaphorical natal chart of the birth of the world, Cancer was on the ascendant. And Cancer was that meeting between body and spirit, where the spirit unified with the body came through what they called the gate of men, where things were born. The gate of Capricorn was where souls left and ascended to whatever is the afterlife. And the transition from Gemini speaks to the Gemini 12th house, the time before birth, the pregnant period where we're trying to make choices. We're weighing all the different options we have. This is related to the myth of where a Roman soldier retained his memory into the afterlife after death and was witnessing people choosing lots and deciding the ethical value of the life that they wanted to live, for better or for worse. And then finally, what we're seeing here in this Mercury Cazimi today is that last 10 degrees of Gemini really asks us to make a choice. And it says, you know what, we can't keep all the plates spinning. We can't live every single life. And we have to make a choice. One option has to be sacrificed so that something else can live. And I thought that was really appropriate for some of the decisions I've made with my channel today, is that I just can't do everything in one particular live stream. So to keep the essence of what I'm trying to do here as pure as I can, I guess that's, maybe that's not the right word, but it's the one that came to mind. I had to let go of something to be able to really infuse the best of my energy into the things that were truly meaningful and important to me, like describing all of the ins and outs, the mythologies, etc., of the lunation itself. So think about that as we move into Cancer season, is that to do Gemini season, I think, well, you explore, you visit all of the different flowers, gathering pollen, and then you make a decision. You try to digest it. You try to turn it into something meaningful, and you want to nurture that moving forward. If we take that bee metaphor forward, you take the pollen back to the hive, you create honey from it, and that honey actually feeds the young bees. So what do you want to feed? What do you want to nurture? What do you want to protect to bring it into fruition? So we have this big stellium, okay? It's a big stack up of planets in Cancer with the Sun, Venus, and Mercury all hanging out in the first decan of Cancer. And we'll break that down because I think that where the Sun is shows us an impulse that we might have as a conscious goal, an awareness, some kind of spotlight as to what we might be trying to achieve from a spiritual perspective. The moon, in turn, is collecting that light and in trying to infuse it into a body or into a manifest reality. So we have a big stack up in the decan of Cancer that is ruled by Venus. Okay, so that it is a lunar ruled sign. Okay, the entire sign is ruled by the moon, but this particular 10-degree section is co-ruled by Venus as the Decanic ruler. So we may be really looking to figure out what we are attracted to. This decan of Cancer is related to a sephira in the Kabbalistic tree of life called Chokmah. And Chokmah is a flash of insight, a flash of awareness, a flash of, the aha moment. So think about like love at first sight is kind of the energy of Cancer 1. It says, oh, wow, you see something and you're like, ooh, you get those butterflies in your stomach, right? And maybe after all of the Gemini, I think maybe Gemini is the dating period, and then you finally meet the one, right? You've visited all the flowers, you've gone out on a bunch of dates, and then you meet the one that you're like, you know what? This is the relationship I'd like to nurture. This is the one I want to commit to. I'm feeling this passion, this attraction to this particular person, and I want to make sure that it lasts. So those are the types of things that we're probably going to be focusing on as we move into Cancer period. Cookerzilla is joining us here. Says, saying hello from Mahone Bay, Nova Scotia. Nice to see you, Cooker. Says, happy almost Cancer season, Spencer. Gemini overloaded lately, but feeling the benefits are coming through. Yeah, right? I mean, Gemini season inherently has that splitting of attention. And as we're moving into Cancer season here and of course, building up to this full moon, I think things will slow down a little bit. And as a Cancer sun and Mercury, I'm here for it. Gemini season is fun to a certain extent for me personally, but I always feel like there's something that I'm not able to do, and that frustrates me. And I'm sure that many of you feel frustrated with some of the things that we just don't have time to pursue. So what I want to do is I want to show you so we've talked about this Cancer stellium, which is, here is the Cancer stellium. Okay, it's Sun at 1 degree Cancer, Venus at 5 degrees Cancer, Mercury at 9 degrees Cancer. Interestingly enough, Mercury is going to be near a fixed star called Alhina at 9 degrees of Cancer. And this is a fixed star it's in the foot of one of the twins in Gemini, and it was dubbed the proudly marching one. So there is a kind of technique or mythological significance of when a deity or a constellational god, like one of Castor or Pollux, if their feet are touching the earth, they are sustaining a wound, because it's difficult for those divine presences to be incarnate. So this is the heel of one of the twins touching the earth and proudly marching, maybe for a cause. So this may be something where we're standing up for something we believe in, but we're also having to navigate some difficult territory around that. And this really brings in some of the themes of the moon in its exile in Capricorn. We have this desire for nurturing. We have this desire for coming into the things that we love and being attracted to an individual in particular. I think that this decan of Cancer, the first decan, is much more about one-on-one relationships. We move into group energy in the second 10 degrees, but this particular one is more about how do we harmonize individual relationships. But with the sun being in Capricorn, the materials that the moon is providing for this impulse aren't normally what Cancer or the moon or this sun in this case would normally feel would be the most supportive environment. Think about the moon also as the environment, the circumstances. So we have a difficult environment with the moon in Capricorn. It doesn't mean if you're born with the moon in Capricorn that you can't do amazing things or you can't be nurturing. It just means that you might have to work a little bit harder at that area, or it might look a little bit differently than it would to other people. Maybe the way that you nurture your relationships and your family is through going out and competing in the business world and providing tangible resources rather than emotional ones that maybe someone with the moon in Cancer would be more inclined to provide. So those are ways to think about it. Think about also, Capricorn is usually in the northern hemisphere the time that we associate with winter and with rest and kind of hibernation. There is death on the face of the earth at that point in time. And Cancer is all about life. It's all about the springing forth of new life, the nurturing of new life, etc. It's also, Cancer, according to Joy Usher, is a place of a climate of kindness. That is one thing that she describes Cancer as. And I tend to agree with that. This is something that we talk about on this channel, is how can we be kind, and not only to each other, but to ourselves. Capricorn is a little bit more, you have to be a little bit thicker skinned. The environment is, think about it, instead of a lush garden, think about it as a rocky mountain terrain. You have to toughen up a little bit. There might not be food as readily available. You may have to work a little harder to get to where you're going. And that's what this moon is really talking about. It says we're trying to create these nurturing relationships, but we may have to work a little bit harder for it. We may not have exactly the resources that we want. And we may be juggling decisions about where we want to build our next projects, our next foundations, etc. Because the Two of Pentacles that the first 10 degree section of Capricorn is all about, or is related to, shows a figure that is juggling two pentacles, juggling two options, a reversal of fortunes, so to speak. That is the related to the winter solstice, where the sun actually starts ascending once again. At the summer solstice, the sun gets to its highest declination, its highest rising point in the southern sky, and then it starts rising lower each day. So this is an interesting death of a solar entity in some regards in both of these particular areas. We have stories of the holly and the oak king, and one takes over for the other. in classical mythology. So we've got that Alhena fixed star as a part of this. We also, as a part of this full moon, have the moon, Mercury, and Venus out of bounds. Now, I think some of you have heard me talk about out of bounds on this channel. What out of bounds means is basically the planet is moving outside the normal declination, the normal height of the sun as it rises at noon. So there's a I believe it's 23 degrees and 26 minutes of height in declination outside of the ecliptic, above or below the ecliptic, that the sun travels over the course of a year. And when these planets, who can move outside of that path that the sun, the height or the nadir that the sun rises, they're said to be out of bounds or out of the realm of the king. Now that means a couple things. It means that the planets act sort of as mavericks. They act very much in their own, truer to their own nature, okay? So it might be an extreme version of each of these planets. So Mercury may be an extremely flexible, extremely communicative. We may be communicating outside of the norms of society. With Venus out of bounds, we may be attracted to things that we would normally not be attracted to or might not be socially acceptable. The moon out of bounds expands our emotional range. It pushes our bodies to the limits. We may try to do things physically that we don't normally do. So we have to be careful of pushing ourselves too far. But also it's an opportunity to maybe think outside the box, to do something a little bit differently that you wouldn't normally attempt, a risk that you might be able to take that you wouldn't normally attempt if the planet was just functioning as it normally does. So that's something to keep in mind. We have both Venus, Mercury, and the moon all out of bounds. Now, one other interesting part about this is that Mercury and Venus are at the bending of the moon's nodes shortly after this full moon. Now that is a condition where we have both of these planets about to square the north and south node of the moon. And astrologers consider that a turning point, because we are heading towards either a point of increase or decrease, and this is the kind of the decision-making period. So here we're seeing both Mercury and Venus heading towards the south node. We're moving away from an increase in declarative, individualistic statements, or like saying this is who we are, and I'm going to do this as an individual. And we're going to start moving towards relational, fulfillment. I don't know if that's the right word. Because it is the south node, we may be having to deal with situations from our past that are relational. So I think that a lot of this turning point says we may have to start moving away from our increase in individualistic thinking, and we may have to move more towards working with others, even if it's feeling like a binding situation. South node in many schools of thought was said to be similar to Saturn, and the north node similar to Jupiter. So if you think about Saturn as binding us to things, there may be obligations that we have within relationships, and this turning point with Venus and Mercury could be significant. Now, one thing that you want to do with your own chart is, first of all, you want to look at where Cancer is in your chart and look at the topic that it's associated with in the house. And then you want to look at the two topics that each of those planets is providing resources for. So in this case, Mercury will be providing resources, okay, for Virgo and Gemini. Okay. And then Venus will be providing resources for Taurus and Libra. And if you really think about it, those topics, Mercury and Gemini, have some kind of connection in your life, as well as Taurus and Libra having some kind of connection within your life because they are ruled by the same planet. So that's a great way to look at, okay, I know I'm at a turning point. Let's say in this just very random Capricorn rising chart, you're at a turning point in a relationship with Venus and Mercury in the 7th house. But you are moving away from a maybe more individualistic, stating your own individual identity within your family, fourth house, and moving more towards having to work with others in your public life or maybe in your career or something like that. And that could have change. You could have to have agreements with your partner, seventh house Cancer, to be able to do more public things. Okay, so that is something that I would look at in your own chart, and your own mileage is going to vary with that. It could also affect your sixth house of work that you do that might not have, might not get a lot of credit for, and your ninth house of belief systems and long distance journeys, etc. So that's what we do with Mercury in that case. So that's a great way to kind of learn how to utilize these planets and connect them with the rest of the chart. Okay, so that's the Mercury and Venus at the bending of the nodes in this particular thing. Chart. Cookerzilla is asking, are you worried about upcoming Cancer Mars? Well, Cooker, that's coming up in the end of the year. There's going to be a retrograde in Leo, where Mars is going to retrograde back into Cancer. I'll tell you what, I try my best not to get overly fearful about specific planetary placements. That being said, when you see a planet, or like specifically like a malefic, having a difficult time, I do think it is beneficial to try to give yourself extra space or extra preparedness, extra grace, to focus on your self-care and make sure that you are giving yourself some room to be able to deal with challenges that might be somewhat difficult. I think that Cancer Mars could lead to some challenges within some of our domestic situations. It really depends on where it is in your chart as to how it could manifest. But here's the thing. We've been through, Mars moves through an entire cycle of the zodiac roughly once every 2 years or so. So we've been through Cancer Mars periods. Some of them, for me in particular, as Cancer Sun and Mercury, some of them have been pretty rough. But we survived, and we got through it, and we learned some things from it. And I think that that's the best that you can do. Ani says, I'm due for a turning point. I'm ready to get off this ride. I think a lot of people are feeling that way right now, Ani. I know that there is some reevaluations that I think a lot of us are going through. I think that, exploring our options sometimes can show us that what we're doing instinctually and routinely may not be serving us, right? And I think that it's important to reevaluate every once in a while and understand if what you're doing is making you happy or making other people happy. So there's no shame in that. It's just a normal process of kind of evaluating where we're at in life. Self-reflection, I guess. Cooker says, I'm wondering how much we can truly revitalize this Cancer. How much we can truly revitalize this Cancer season. Cancer, Moon, and 8th house, learning to be grateful for Cancer energy. Yeah, I hear you. I mean, I've been really looking for a vacation. I'm overdue for being able to shut my brain off for a week or so and not think about work, not think about all the projects I have to do in my house, etc. There's a part of me that's like, I need to get out of Dodge for a little bit. And it's been challenging trying to carve that time out. So I feel you, Cookerzilla. There could be some potential for having some compromises that we have to make. Oftentimes we want to get away from things, but we have responsibilities. And this is something also that this moon could be speaking towards, is sometimes it's difficult to get away from our responsibilities. Sometimes we just have circumstances that are pulling us back into the routine, the work, etc. And your mileage may vary with that, but I do think that getting outside of our normal routines, getting outside of our normal environments can actually be very, very healing and very enlightening, because oftentimes we are just on autopilot so much in our daily lives. And when you get outside of that space, the noise, just a lot of it can shut off. Now, I've been on vacations where the vacation was a lot more work than just staying home. So it is a delicate balance to figure out how to really, truly recharge the well. But I do find that being out in nature and having some quiet really does help. Ani says, Mercury and Venus are difficult planets for me, and I'm ready to make choices instead of them being made for me. I'm supportive of that, Ani. I think that oftentimes when we start to be intentional with our life and with our time, when we learn how to say no, right? Because it says you're saying juggling too much and end up dropping all the balls. Yes, I think that this is that when we become intentional, when we decide what our true priorities are, it's a lot easier to say no to those things that are trying to pull us away from that. And, to be fair, many of us, myself included, we don't like necessarily rocking the boat or making people upset, or it's more the fear of making people upset. Sometimes when we state our truth in a confident manner, even if some people don't agree with us, it's easier for them to respect that, rather than if we're constantly waffling, and that shows people that we're willing to be either influenced or taken advantage of. So I think that if you can decide what is truly important to you and then pursue that with confidence, one of two things is going to happen. You're either going to be successful manifesting what it is that is your most important, highest priority, or life is going to show you that something else was the priority, and you can make an adjustment after that. Okay, so we've got Mercury, Moon, and Venus at the bending of the nodes. We've talked about Mercury near the fixed star Alhina. I want to show you the Decans of Cancer, a page from my webinar that you'll be able to get on sale when Cancer season starts. This is the Two of Cups, and here we see people exchanging cups. This is a Mercury, this is a Venus-ruled Decan. Mercury is the second Decan. This is a Venus-ruled Decan, and it is called the Lord of Love. Austin Coppock in his 36 Faces calls it Mother and Child. It's an awareness of what we need to feel nurtured, supported, loved, etc. Okay, so nurturing and maternal care is very much a theme of this particular area of the zodiac. We've talked about Chokmah in Bria, the emotional awareness, the flash of insight. Union of body and spirit. We've touched on that a little bit with the Cancer being the rising sign of the universe, etc., with the thema mundi type of experience. We have romance and falling in love being a theme. Like you might just really decide what it is that really just gets you going, and that's a really interesting pursuit at this full moon, as well as understanding what truly makes you happy, appreciating beauty in others. Twos in the tarot always speak to an awareness of an other. So in here we have other people's emotions, other people's energy, feelings and intuition. In that opposite Decan, Capricorn could be dealing with other people's resources, okay? Something of that nature. So think about how you can balance your exchanges. Harmonious relationships. Now, the really good news, I think, about this full moon is that Venus is going to be in its own Decan, okay, in its own face. That it's going to be supercharged to be able to create harmonious relationships. And I actually think that is one of the best features of this full moon, that even though the moon is in a tough spot or in an uncomfortable spot, Venus is really going to be doing its best to harmonize and to get everybody on the same page. And I'm looking forward to that part of this lunation. So questions you could ask yourself with Cancer. I think it's always important to examine what the sun is asking of us at full moons and new moons in particular, because that's what's infusing essence into the lunar body, okay? So what are our intentions for the lunation? And seeing how it plays out is where we look for the moon. So what do you need to feel nurtured? How can you offer your support in a balanced way? What new passion is attracting your interest? How can you harmonize your relationships? Is this pairing mutually beneficial? Okay, so we have an exchange going on here. And how can you infuse essence into a body? Okay, so things to consider around this period of time. So we have the sun in this particular arrangement in Cancer 1. Now, the host of this lunation is Capricorn 1. And here we see a slide from the Capricorn webinar where we are moving from the Two of Cups to the Two of Pentacles. So here we see someone juggling two pentacles in the arrangement called a lemniscat. Okay, that is a figure eight that reflects the movement of the sun over the course of a solar year. And we have these turnings, right? The turnings at the solstices, the summer and winter solstice. So we're having a turning of direction of the sun at the summer solstice here, but we also have that same energy kind of infused into the moon. Like we have a descending energy at the summer solstice. We're at the height and now we're coming down. And in the Capricorn, we have this ascending energy. Well, interestingly enough, you will often see people who embody both of these archetypes come to prominence in fame in very different ways. Oftentimes, Cancerian types are somewhat prodigious. They start off having a lot of success when they're young, and then once they achieve that success, then it's almost like they've changed their minds and like, okay, I've gotten what I need to feel comfortable. I'm going to go off and just hang out in my garden or raise pigeons if you're Mike Tyson or whatever it is, right? But Capricorn has a different story. Capricorn often is starting from nothing and keeps ascending over time. So they have more of the rags to riches type of energy that you will see that reflects the energy of the sun at the winter solstice. So that is an interesting dichotomy between those two that is worth exploring within your own charts as well, if you have any of these placements. So the moon, of course, is related to nurturing. It's related to mothering. It's related to the body. But in Capricorn, it's said to be in its exile. It's said to be in a place that is difficult, where oftentimes when I work with clients, if someone has a Capricorn moon, they often have a relationship with one of their caretakers, mother, father, etc., that is transactional, where there was expectations to receive love or performance expected instead of unconditional love. So we may see more archetypes of unconditional love related to the Cancerian area and more conditional exchanges related to Capricorn. So that could be part of what we are experiencing at this full moon too, is this trying to harmonize our relationships, but we're placing conditions and expectations upon those exchanges. And that can complicate things. And that's something to think about moving forward. So themes of this decan that the moon is going to be coming full in: return of the light, descent of spirit into matter, Hokmah in Asya, so the same Sephira, but in a different elemental world. A flash of material insight rather than of emotional insight that we see in Cancer. Change of location, that's a big theme that I see play out in people's charts that have planets in this decan. You know, weighing the pros and cons of a particular place. I see a lot of people that have to move a lot, sometimes by choice, other times by circumstance. So there might be something where we're feeling like we have a choice, where we are not feeling comfortable in our space. Cancer is a sign notorious for a desire to return home, okay? If you know any Cancers in your life, myself included, we're usually the first one to leave the party. You know, we're like, hey, we met everyone, all right, it's time to go home, it's our bedtime. But I think that with this particular lunation, home might be a foreign place, or we may have difficulty finding that home. I would also offer that the home that Cancer is seeking is not just our physical homes. It is, according to Liz Green in the Astrology of Fate and Mythic Astrology, a return to the primordial womb, a return to oneness with the divine, this nostalgic longing for this time before birth, where we were not separated from our mothers, from spirit, from the divine, from each other. And I think that is another Cancerian theme. So we may be longing to return home, but it might be a little bit difficult to feel comfortable in the home that we find ourselves in. Okay. Even to the point where you may be like, I gotta move. There's something I need to find that I'm not finding where I'm at. So looking both forward and backwards, this is a great time to reflect on how effective that you've been in creating that sense of home. Capricorn 1 also refers to the laws of the land. This is related to an idea that Mr. Kopic talks about, which is, I believe, called the genus loci, or the spirit of a place. So Capricorn 1 is very good at understanding how things work at a specific location. So we may be working through understanding how to work in a specific location that may feel foreign to us at first. So here we talk about the genus loci, the protective spirit of a place. So questions you could ask yourself related to the moon in the first decan of Capricorn. Where are you going? Where have you been? What is being set in motion? Where is the best place to build your structures? What are the laws of this new land? Is your vision sound, or is your focus too narrow? And then finally, how can you inhabit this body in order to redeem or heal it? There is a spirit in this decan called Asclepius, and Asclepius was a very talented healer, so much so that he was said to be able to bring things back from the dead. And that has a lot of significance with the resurrection of the sun in Capricorn season, the changing of direction of the sun, where it starts to ascend again at the noon hour in the sky. So how can you heal something in your life? Maybe it's related to your body. Maybe it's related to how you feel nurtured and how you exchange resources, whether they are physical or emotional, with other people. Now, so we've discussed the moon in Capricorn 1. Now we have the host Saturn. Let's go back to the chart. The host of the moon is Saturn. Whoops. Let's get our circle. So in this case, the host of the sun is the moon. So the sun, Venus, and Mercury are being provided for by a Capricorn 1 moon. So a little bit difficult, like the quality of those resources may not be exactly what they're looking for. So we have to resolve some of that tension maybe, or at least hold some duality, pulled in a couple different directions. But the moon is being provided for by Saturn in the second decan of Pisces. So at the root of some of this confusion, some of this discomfort potentially, okay, we could also be asking ourselves, what does it mean? What does all this mean? What type of dream am I trying to achieve? Saturn has been showing us that there are some boundaries and some disconnects between our imagined reality and our lived reality. Saturn in the second decan of Pisces is also making it very clear where we are overestimating our abilities and need to commit to more education, more learning, more questions. You know, Jupiter in Gemini now is really like supercharging that effort. So this is a good opportunity with Saturn about to station retrograde, okay? This is a Saturn that is slowing way down. So you, in addition to the shifts that we see with the sun changing its direction at the summer solstice, Saturn is also slowing down to station retrograde, okay? And so let me clarify that. The sun is not going retrograde or anything like that. The sun is just rising lower in the sky each day. And we do see that as a shift in direction in some cases. Now with Saturn, we are reviewing where we may have overestimated our ability. We're reviewing how to blend our dream life, our imagination, with our lived and physical reality. We are just coming off of a Gemini new moon that was very close to Venus and was very close to a square with Saturn, an overcoming square. An interesting story to tell with this, friends, is so at my Gemini new moon, I had intended to plant my garden. I've been systematically going through and removing turf from my yard to be able to plant native pollinator plants. And this year, instead of seeding a back area with wildflower seed, which I did last year that worked okay, but there were some things that were not native in the mix, and I didn't really know that at the time, and it just got really weedy. This year I was very intentional. I got plants from the native plant sale here in Washtenaw County. I had like 70 like little plant starts, and I had cleared what I thought I had cleared the dirt, and I laid down the mulch, which I would highly recommend not laying down the mulch until you plant your plants. That was one of my mistakes. But I started digging the plants in, and I had planted half of the plants. And then I have one of those little flower like cups with a handle that you twist in and it pulls the dirt out, and you just put the plug in. Well, I did that as I was almost done, and I started hitting rock. And I started digging, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's huge slabs of rock in this garden bed. And I started digging and started pulling them out, and then I'd pull out another one and another one and another one, to the point where I had probably about 700 pounds of previous path rock that I had pulled out of the garden. And it took me all afternoon. It was very labor intensive, time consuming. It was very much Saturn saying, slow down. You're going to have to earn this. You know, I'm going to actually give you what you want. Because what I had a path that I had made from previous concrete I had pulled out of that same space that was like this junk concrete. And I'm like, I got to replace this. It's not flat. I'm kind of almost twisting my ankle every time I walk on it. And sure enough, Saturn gave me the exact type of pavers that you'd put in a garden path. Completely flat, very heavy. But it was like, you have to work for it. It's going to completely change your plan for the day. And, you know, it's going to slow you way down. So Saturn has been throwing those types of obstacles in our pathway. And really the thing that we have to do is surrender to it. So in this case, there may be obstacles that we're experiencing towards harmonizing our relationships and getting the emotional support that we need, and we may just have to surrender to it. The good news about Saturn being the host of this moon is that instead of squaring all of the Gemini planets, excluding Jupiter, because Jupiter is going to be there for a little while, now Saturn is in an overcoming trine to the Sun, Venus, and Mercury. And that's an easier, more flowing relationship between the two. We understand potentially what our limitations are and are willing to work within them rather than raging against them. And I think that's an important shift that we're seeing at this full moon, etc. So that's Saturn and Pisces 2, making us be realistic about our goals and our dreams, helping us understand that sometimes we have to surrender to a process and redo something, like especially with Saturn going retrograde. We may have to redo some of this. Like, continuing that story, after I had finished digging out an enormous pile of paver rocks, I started planting a different section where I was digging in, and I hit, after about half a foot, I started hitting gravel. So I was trying to dig these flowers into gravel, and if I dig down far enough, I'd hit dirt again. But man, it was so Saturn square, trying to expand what I was doing, but really being slowed down in the process. Devin Malone is here. What's up, Devin? Devin says, Mars is very active in this full moon through sextiles and trines. Yeah, absolutely. So we have Mars in Taurus making a sextile to Mercury, and that is something where we're going to be seeing that play out, as well as the moon eventually trining Mars. So we may have to find the right pace. We may have to get outside of our comfortable routines. I think Mars in Taurus is speaking towards disrupting our normal, comfortable routines so that we can achieve something. Again, as I was talking about at the beginning of the show, oftentimes we can be on autopilot, and it is very easy to just kind of go through the motions, and Mars is not going to allow us to do that, and especially as it starts coming together with Uranus in mid-July. Devin says, Moon and Mars reception with honors. Yeah, that's pretty cool, right? They're each in each other's exaltations. That's a cool exchange that they're doing there. So that's a neat kind of concept. When you're exchanging exaltations, even if they're in their respective exiles, they may be able to work together even if they're cast out right? Even if they're on the fringe, etc., there could be some benefit that comes through that arrangement between the two. Jennifer is here. Says, hi, Mercury Kazimi. Yes, nice to see you, Jennifer. Hope you're doing well. What's up, Mariana? Mariana says, hi, Spencer. Hi, everyone. Nice to see you, Mariana, joining us from Argentina. Welcome, my friend. Jennifer says, I have Jupiter and Moon in the second decan of Pisces. So your Saturn is really testing you right now, Jennifer, for sure. Ani says, wait until you have to install your own landscape irrigation. Oh, no. Saturn foul, then is leaks and have to dig it up again. Oof, that sounds rough, Ani. Yeah, I haven't installed an irrigation system yet, but I can only imagine. I think what I'm trying to do now is keep the water out of my basement. That's probably another Saturn in Pisces type of experience. Tom's here. What's up, Tom? Says namaste, Spencer and friends. Nice to see you, Tom. I believe joining us from sunny San Francisco. Okay, so we've talked about the host in Pisces, the Saturn in Pisces. Now, the first aspect that we're going to see of this full moon, which I think is important to understand, is we are going to see the full moon. Let's do two charts here. And we will see that the first aspect is going to be a sextile to the aforementioned Saturn. Now, this is a really great way to see how a full moon might play out over time. When you start to see the results of that full moon, full moons bring us an awareness. They are a peak of light, a peak of visibility for the moon, but there is this kind of waiting period that we have when the moon is said to be under the bond of the sun. So when it is within a 15-degree orb of opposition on either side or conjunction, it's said to be under the bond. So when it escapes that 15-degree pattern, then we look for the planet that it aspects to give us some insight as to how it might play out. So in this case, we're seeing a sextile with that Saturn. I think there's a harmonious relationship with our limitations. There's a harmonious relationship with the work that we need to do, with how far we have to go or what we need to surrender to. Maybe instead of overestimating our abilities, we come to accept that we don't have to know or do everything, right? I think that's really important, especially the surrendering to curiosity and that there might be a divine plan. So in my case, like, let's take my garden example again. I didn't finish planting the entire garden the first day. But since I surrendered to the process, I in turn was given the ultimate Saturnian gift, stone, like quality stone, like high quality paver stone. And I'll have to post a picture of this on my Instagram stories or something, because it's literally like a 4-foot high pile and it's probably about 6 foot wide of these enormous, 3 foot long paver stones that I at one point, there were many of them stuck in the tree roots of the large maple. And I had to kind of have a conversation with the maple and say, look, I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to free you from these burdens, and you will be able to grow much stronger if you let go of these stones. And sure enough, shortly after that, they came free, and that was kind of a nice moment I had with that elder tree. But yeah, this might be the moment with the sextile with the moon to Saturn where we really understand our limitations and flow with it instead of work against it and try to swim upstream. Now, as we go farther along in our journey, we are going to see Mercury at the bending of the nodes. So here is Mercury at 12 degrees, and you can see it's exactly square the north and south node. Now this is generally going to be starting on the 22nd. Okay, so it's a little bit past that. So Mercury will be at the bending of the nodes at the 22nd. And then Venus is going to follow suit. So again, turning points, especially related to your Gemini and Virgo areas of your life, where you might be moving more towards potentially needing to work with someone or in relationship and moving a little bit away from radical independence. And then Venus is going to be making that same aspect if we move forward a couple days. Okay, you can see that on the outer ring. Here's Venus now at the bending of the nodes around this period of time, around 11 degrees, okay, of Cancer. So this is another period where you would want to look towards the Libra and Taurus area of your chart to see where that decision that you're making in the Cancer topic is going to be affecting those other areas of your life. So in this random Capricorn example, Capricorn rising, a relational conversation, 7th house, may have an effect on not only your public and private self, which is related to where the north and south nodes are, but also specifically related to that 10th house of public works and the 5th house of personal creativity or your children or the way that you seek pleasure in life. So this could be moving towards, let's say Capricorn risings might be moving towards working with someone to help express their own creativity, right? But it might be something that's, it might not be a permanent relationship is what I will say. When these planets are at the bending of the nodes and we're moving towards the south node, we're moving towards releasing potentially a relationship. We may have to revisit it to release it, okay? And that might be part of the story to help us increase our independence, which the north node is encouraging us to do. All right, as we move forward with some of the other aspects that shortly follow the full moon, Mercury is trining Saturn. Okay, so you can see here, around the 26th, Mercury is going to be making a trine to Saturn. So the information that we receive may lead to some sober thinking. It may lead to understanding our limitations. It may lead to understanding how we turn a dream into reality. And we may be communicating with a lot of different people because that second decan of Cancer related to the 3 of Cups relates to celebrating with others and having a nice experience with others. It's also related to something called the walled garden in 36 faces. It is Mercury in its own decan. This is being able to communicate in a way that is kind and is getting people on board with your vision as well, like smoothing out our words and communication. So we may be able to have conversations about commitments and what we are committing to around that, where we are in harmony with what we need to do rather than overestimating our ability potentially. So that's Mercury trine Saturn on the 26th. And then right after that, Mercury will emerge as the evening star, okay, at about 21 or 22 degrees of Cancer. So here you see now we have the 15-degree arc of separation between Mercury and the Sun. So if you were to put Mercury on the descendant, which we have here, Mercury is now visible in the night sky. So this is a point where we may be receiving visible feedback on some of the things that we started literally today, as I'm recording this, June 14th, as Mercury is Cazimi in the heart of the Sun at 24 degrees of Gemini. So this is the point where the results of some of these actions might be more visible in our life, okay? And some of those things might be related to dealing with both surplus and scarcity, because Mercury is going to be emerging in the 3rd decan of Cancer, which is related to what do we do when we have more than we need, when we're satisfied and then we feel like we've had our fill. Now what do we do? Like we've had this feeling maybe of boredom, maybe of ennui, where we said, I've had enough of this, but I don't know exactly what's next. My recommendation would be sit with that feeling a little bit. You don't necessarily have to have it all resolved. I have Mercury at this almost very degree. My Mercury is at 22 Cancer. And I know when I have that feeling of like discontent, boredom, etc., it precedes a breakthrough. The transition from Cancer to Leo infuses us in this sense of purpose. We've satiated the bodily desires, and now we have to move towards maybe finding greater spiritual meaning potentially. So sit with that feeling and allow it to change you, and don't feel like you have to have it all figured out when Mercury is emerging. But you may have some ideas about what to do, what you want to move away from, what you've had enough of, what you want to do with the extra that you have, right? Those are all things that could come to the fore with Mercury emerging from the beams. Oh, let's see. Mariana says, I'll be migrating on the 26th, taking a plane to Germany. After a 25-hour flight, I will also encounter there my online crush. Ooh, Mariana. I'm excited and nervous. I have Venus at 0 degrees Cancer, Ascendant in Gemini. Interesting. So you are going to be playing out many of the themes of the first decan of Cancer, with the sun hanging out there around that period of time, right? That kind of those butterflies that might come up with feeling attraction to a crush. That's very cool. And then you know with the Mercury being at the emerging as the evening star, lots of communications and things of that nature. Literally taking a trip. That's really cool, Mariana. I wish you luck with that, and I hope everything works out well. Jennifer says, my natal Mercury will be conjunct with my Mercury then too, so trine my natal Jupiter and Moon. Oh my goodness. Well, that could be a fruitful time for you too, Jennifer, especially with, believe this is Gemini rising, right? Yeah, so could be a great time for relaxing and just having a vacation. I'm kind of earmarking this period of time maybe for some time off. I don't know. We'll have to see. Susanna says, as a cat moon from Finland. A cat moon from Finland, a bit late. Hello, everyone. Nice to see you, Susanna. How you doing, my friend? Yeah, this will be a big one for you with the sun in Cancer and the moon in Capricorn in your natal chart. So that is, we'll see how that turns out. I'm curious to hear what you've been up to. Yeah, Jennifer says, yep, time off. Okay, so Mercury will be emerging as the evening star, right around 20 to 21 degrees of Cancer. And then we have a couple other things. We are going to have the last quarter moon on the 28th. Okay, so here's the last quarter moon around this period of time. You can see here the moon's in, let's go right to it. So about 7 degrees of Aries. And last quarter moons generally are like existential crises. And it doesn't have to be a big crisis. Like when we hear existential crisis, we're like, oh no, it's something terrible. No, it could just be that you're changing your mind about something. That you're done with the previous lunar cycle. You're trying to wrap up and tie up loose ends. And you may just have, you may be ready to move on to the next phase. And you want to be done with it. So in this case, when the moon wanes, this is something I really like about Austin's book. He gives you insights into what you might expect from the moon in a particular decan if it's waxing, and then what you might expect from the moon in a decan if it's waning. Oftentimes when the moon is waning, we are trying to eliminate obstacles and barriers to manifesting whatever it is that we're experiencing. So in this case, we might be releasing, obstacles and barriers to either independence. There's two ways I could see this. We're either releasing obstacles and barriers to independence because the moon is going to be very close to the North Node, increasing our desires for independence. But if it's waning, maybe we're releasing our attachment to doing everything by ourselves. And maybe that can help facilitate more harmony within our relationships because we're releasing some of that lunar Aries martial energy and saying, well, for us to have a peaceful relationship, maybe we have to work together a little bit more. And I could see that being part of the manifestation as well. Okay. Yeah, we got people saying hello in the chat here. Finally, one more aspect for this lunation. Saturn stations retrograde on the 29th. Okay. So this is what we've been kind of hinting at throughout our examination of this full moon, where we have Saturn at 19 degrees of Pisces, slowing way down at the full moon, and then stationing retrograde about 8 days afterwards. And I believe it stations retrograde until November, mid-November, something of that nature. So this is a time for us to review our dreams, to review the structures that we've created around our heart's desire, around the wishes that we've been making, around how we evaluate our skill set and how we evaluate what we know and what we don't know. Are we surrendering when we need to surrender? Are we trying to prove that we are competent when no such need to prove ourselves exists? You know, sometimes it's okay just to be. Sometimes it's okay to say, you know what? I don't know. I'll have to do more research, or I won't. And I'll just accept what's happening in my life. Like, there's two options that you have there. Oftentimes, we don't need to gather more information. We just need to be guided towards the answer. That's a tough lesson for someone, in my own case, that has multiple planets in Mercury-ruled signs, with Venus in Gemini and Jupiter, Saturn, and Mars in Virgo, is saying, oh, I don't need to go find the answer. I'm just going to let time pass, and it's going to resolve itself. And in turn, you release the anxiety around that too. If you truly have faith in a benevolent universe, I think you allow some things to happen every once in a while. It's very difficult to do, especially many of us who practice something like astrology. We want to know how things are going to turn out. A lot of us have had experiences in our life where fate wasn't necessarily kind to us, and we want to be prepared, right, for the bad things that might happen, and also be able to take advantage of the good times too and appreciate them. And I think it is quite a life lesson to be able to surrender to what the planets are speaking towards. The way I like to work with astrology is, how do I come into alignment with what those planets are asking of us? And on the flip side, how do I mitigate any excessive desires that the planets might be trying to work through me, right? Let's say we have an excessive Mars energy. Let's say that we get really angry with Mars and Uranus coming together on Algol on the 14th of July. Well, because we understand that that is coming, we may be able to mitigate our anger through being properly prepared physically, mentally, emotionally, by being centered, by giving ourselves extra space on that day, by slowing down to avoid accidents due to rashness or hubris. That's really important, because that third decan of Taurus is related to hubris and humility in the face of nature. Sometimes you want to go out and have a picnic, but it's about to storm and there is lightning around. And if you hubristically go out and keep cooking on your metal grill while there's lightning in the area, you are risking being struck by lightning. That's an example of hubris in the face of nature. So humility in the face of nature would be saying, you know what? This just isn't the day, and I'm going to have to move my operation, and I may have to reschedule, or I may have to shut it down early, or whatever it is. Those are the types of things, when you know that that is a possibility, you can take extra precautions in your schedule and your life. Now, that being said, Uranus never fails to surprise me. Even though we might see some of these things coming, the actual manifestation of it is often electric, right? And is often very like, oh, wow, that's still surprising. So you could try to predict till the cows come home, and it still can be a challenge. Yeah, Jennifer says waning equals eliminate and or disseminate. Yeah, I agree. Removing something from our life. Sharing what we've learned. Okay. Robin says the full moon will be opposing my midheaven and my Mars, both 2 degrees Cancer and in my 10th house. Oh my goodness, Robin. So this will be an important one for you. Whenever we have an angular full or new moon, which angular is related to the 1st, 7th, 4th, or 10th house, or close to the midheaven or the IC, if you have a midheaven or IC in a different house, which is possible if you use whole sign houses, there could be something very personal that's happening with these lunations. So Robin, in your case, with a Libra rising, you're probably seeing something coming to a head with your home life that is related to your public life, or with one of your parents or something of that nature, okay? Because we're working with the Cancer Capricorn axis over your 4th and 10th houses. So give yourself extra space, extra nurturing, etc. Jennifer says, right on my moon at 19 degrees, Saturn retrograde. My goodness, Jennifer. So this could just, with moon, Saturn, I think that with moon in Pisces, in that area of the zodiac, and I believe you have a Cancer sun, if I'm remembering this correctly, you just have to be very careful about overestimating what you do with your body. Like I'm guessing that there's been some times in your life where you've pushed your body a little bit beyond its limits because you're like, I can do that. I can hike 20 miles today and I'll be fine. And then the consequences of that come up if you're, let's say, maybe you're just not feeling up to it that day, but you try to power through it or something like that. And I think Saturn on your moon, this is a concept, I believe, in Vedic astrology called Sade Sati. When we have Saturn on our moon, it's starting to show us some of our limitations related to our fate or to our body, etc. So I think that the best way to deal with Saturn on your moon is to appreciate what your limitations might be without just saying, oh, I'm just going to surrender to this. I know this is a little bit contradicting what I said before, but I do think Saturn says be realistic about what you are capable of and what you aren't, and especially when it's on an important planet like the moon. Ani says 6/14, marking that date. 6/14. That's today, right? Like, maybe you're thinking of a different date potentially. 7/14, Ani. It's July 14th for the Mars Uranus. Yeah. Yeah, Ani says Mars on Algol don't play. I agree with you on that. A debilitated Mars might be a shit show. It could be. That is coinciding with an important historical event here in the United States, the sentencing of a former president that was found guilty of 34 felony counts. And that could lead to some people losing their heads, no matter what the result is. I think that whatever happens that day, there's going to be a section of society that is very unhappy. There's going to be some people that are very happy. So that's just how things go when you have a very polarizing figure like that. So that's something where we could see some civil unrest in regards to that. I also would keep your eye out for natural forces around that time. If you're, like, let's say you're planning a vacation. I was looking for, like, vacation time in July. I was like, and one of the times that works for me and my partner is the weekend leading up to that. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, that's probably not the time to schedule, like, a camping trip, because it could lead to extreme weather events that arise suddenly that you can't really anticipate, etc. So that might not be the best time for, like, an outdoor excursion. Or if it is, make sure that you're prepared and that you respect nature and take the proper precautions. Was the solar eclipse at 20 degrees? Which solar eclipse, Jennifer? Which one are you referring to? Ani says, wait, 7/14. Glad I caught that. Yes, exactly. Carol, what's up? Mortal Miles here says, I'm experiencing a massive thing with a nodal square relating. I'm just going to put the full moon back in Capricorn back up here so we can just see that. I'm experiencing a massive thing with a nodal square relating to a nodal square from 1996, but the nodes were in opposite positions to now. It opened a former trauma which set in motion a grieving process. Ooh, interesting. So you probably were seeing something with the north node in Libra and the south node in Aries. And at that bending of the nodes, you are moving away from an increase in relationships and towards an Aries south node type of energy where you might have been bound, which Saturn sort of related to the south node, to becoming more independent, right? So an interesting process with that. But it's always interesting to go back and see when we have similar energies, even if they're with opposite nodes, and kind of try to make some of those connections. It's a very holistic way of doing astrology, and I think it's one that can bring a lot of benefits. Okay. Let's see. Makes good sense. I can be a bit pie in the sky sometimes, Jennifer says. Yeah, you know, and you know what? The beautiful part of having the moon in that decan is that you probably have an ability, Jennifer, to bring some beautiful visions from your imagination into reality, to manifest some of your dreams into reality. And that's a great thing. My mom had a Pisces moon, and she was very good at she was very creative, and she had a beautiful garden, and she really, if she had a vision, she was able to manifest it more often than not, and it was fun. It was beautiful. It was idyllic, and there were times when maybe she overshot the mark, but the faith that she had in it, I think, was important, and that we do need to maintain that. I think a little bit of that innocence too. Even with Saturn, they're showing us our limitations. Jennifer is talking about the eclipse in April. Let's look at that real quick. So that was any eclipse. Yeah, we had the 19-degree Aries eclipse in April, at the degree of exaltation of the sun. So we might see something connected with that as well, with things going towards the bending of the nodes. So always good to connect that as well. Okay, so friends, that is what we have for our full moon. Now, if you have any more questions, if you have some questions about how these things might interact with your chart, feel free to put that in the chat. If you are joining me a little bit later in the stream today, I made an announcement earlier that for now, I'm going to be separating out the rising sign horoscopes from the just regular analysis of the full and new moons, just to shorten our time together. The 3 to 4 hour lunation rising sign horoscopes were just a little bit too long, and I was pretty blown out by the end of them. It was around my dinner time here in the Eastern time zone, and I just don't feel like I was completely at my best. And those might return in some other form, maybe through a separate live stream or a pre-recorded thing, or maybe through a crowdfunding perk, but I haven't quite made that decision yet. But I'm just trying to do my best at what we're doing today, and I feel pretty good about it. I still feel pretty charged up right now, and that we're communicating pretty well. So if you have anything that you want to ask before we kind of start rounding towards the animal and the I-Ching today, feel free to do so. But we're going to start talking about that as well. So I'm going to take the chart off of here, and we'll put my face back up there. Okay. Ani says, thanks, Spencer. Shorter format is appreciated. Yeah, I know not everybody has the stamina for a 4-hour live stream, myself included, I guess, as I get older. But and I can't guarantee that there won't be some that go long. The monthly horoscopes probably still will be fairly long, but I find it easier to do longer ones that people can engage with piecemeal after the fact, rather than doing one every day or something like that. That just doesn't work for my schedule. So that's why a lot of that happens that way. But we're still testing things out. I mean, doing work like this is a constant experiment, seeing what works and what doesn't. I do want to take this opportunity right now to ask you, please, to do me a huge favor. Please like and subscribe to the channel. If you're new here, welcome. We try to go in depth with our analysis. We hold space for your questions and for your reflections as well. It would be lovely if you would do me a favor and like the video. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Go check me out at spencermichaud.com. Book a reading if you want more information about your personal chart. Follow me over on Instagram, Twitter, and Threads at Spencer Michaud. And of course, if you want to make a donation to the work I'm doing here today, you can buy a super chat in the chat today on YouTube with the little $, or you can go to Buy Me a Coffee and buymeacoffee.com. Okay. Yeah, people are getting some good feedback here. We've got Uranus ascending, saying that their natal moon is at 0 degrees Cancer in the 12th, so this might be a good start for a break for you there, Uranus ascending. Susanna says, sounds good. Oh, nice. Thank you, Susanna. I hope you're doing well. Susanna, I want to know I've been following along with you on Instagram, and you've been showing pictures of these beautiful birdhouses that you've been painting. And they're these little birds that are blue and green, and we don't have them in the United States. And I'm curious as to what they are. What are those birds called? Tell me in the chat if you get this. Ani says, I'm busy and it's hard to carve out 3 to 4 hours, but I try to catch the replays. Yeah. Different, and different strokes for different folks. Some people love the long format. Some people are like, oh, it's too long. Some people take a break in between. But I think we're finding the sweet spot here today. Jennifer says, thanks. That makes me feel better with my ideas. And yes, when I focus on manifestation, I get pretty close. Oh, I'm glad to hear that, Jennifer. Yeah, and there's no shame in having respecting limitations. The other thing I will say to Jennifer about that is sometimes just our energy levels change at different phases of our life. And coming into alignment with whatever stage we're in life is important, and we just might have to pace ourselves in a different way. Stellar Rendition says, I appreciate the long format, but totally understand the change. Oh, I appreciate that, friend. And again, I hope that you'll stick with me here, friends. I try to do my best to be as informative as I can, and we're just making some small changes. And again, those rising sign horoscopes might come back in a different form. Dawn says, finally getting to check in. Hope you're all having a great week. Nice to see you, Dawn. And thank you, Dawn, for sending me your beautiful homemade cat food recipe. We'll be trying that out at our house and see how it goes down, but I appreciate that, friend. So Susanna says that is a blue tit. That's funny. So like a titmouse type of experience, right? We have titmice here in America, but they are very different than that. Ours have crests, and they're gray. But yours are beautiful. These beautiful blue and green markings. They are so awesome. I've been enjoying seeing those birds that we just literally don't have here in the North America. Tom says, yeah, my butt gets tired after sitting for so long. Well, friends, take a stretch break, right? Take a little stretch break here. That's what we got to do, right? We got to make sure we're taking care of our body along the way here. Get it all stretched out. And we're kind of rounding the bend here. We're probably going to be done in about 10 minutes here, depending on how many more questions we get. But we're almost done here. Don says, you're welcome. Hope it works out well for you guys. Yeah, appreciate Don. I appreciate people who send me cool stuff like homemade cat food recipes, articles, information. I love it. Susanna says, in Finnish, it's, let me see if I can pronounce this, Tianinen. I get it. Sinitianen. And how am I doing? Am I close? That's cool. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, Jennifer says, whatever feels right for you, I'll adjust. Don says, I take it things are changing. Well, things are changing with the live stream a little bit, but also with my kitties. I've been changing their diet and been eliminating some of the carbohydrates so that my potentially diabetic cat can maybe, have a better experience. Ani says, I actually prefer the slow pace and chit chat, just hard to make the time. Getting the highlights helps so that I can get on with it. Nice. All right, friends, you all are a great audience and community, and I very much appreciate all of the discussions that we have. Oh, yes. I did get a nice pronunciation there, Susanna. And Susanna's been helping me out in Finland. When she posts her stories, I asked her to post in English as well, just for my benefit, like just for Spencer in Michigan's benefit. And she's been sharing more of her insights in English and Finnish at the same time. Sunday, I think we've been sharing different videos of how literal Finnish in English has some very interesting translations, and we've been getting a kick out of that. So it's always fun to connect with my international friends. Okay, friends, let's move on to the I-Ching reading. Okay, so here we have an I-Ching where we are getting some insight into this full moon in Capricorn. So I asked, what is the essence of the full moon in Capricorn I in 2024? And I got the hexagram number 7, which translates to the army. It also has a sub-translation to military virtues, discipline, self-discipline, Sound like Capricorn? Like honor, loyalty, integrity, massing of force, the multitude. So this hexagram speaks towards being organized, I think. I think it's a lesson in, being able to move forward with a plan. So oftentimes Cancer energy is very one step forward, two steps back, sideways moving, move to the left, move to the right. We go anywhere but directly towards our path. And I think that the balancing energy at this full moon with Capricorn moon says you kind of need to pick a goal and consistently move towards it. And being organized in that and being disciplined in that can be very helpful. Jack Balkin, in his book, wonderful translation, The Laws of Change, says a mass of people is not an army, but it can become one if it is trained, organized, and led by a great general. Discipline is crucial. It converts a disorganized mob into an effective fighting force. But discipline is not achieved through threats or violence. Rather, it requires leadership. Good generals know how to inspire their troops and create a sense of esprit de corps. I probably butchered that French word there. But they know how and when to exercise authority and punish disobedience, to encourage resourcefulness and reward ambition. They train their troops so thoroughly that discipline and obedience become second nature, and then they organize and arrange them so that their force and effect is amplified and maximized. Great generals always show care and concern for the welfare of their soldiers. They understand the destructiveness of war and therefore risk the lives of their soldiers only when it is necessary to do so. So that is talking about the care that we need to have, especially when we're trying to marshal forces towards a chosen goal. Now, there are a few changing lines, okay? So we have two changing lines. The first one at the second place says, in the middle of the army, good fortune, no blame. 3 times the king bestows a decoration. So Jack Balkin says that this line compares your situation to that of a general amongst his troops. A good general remains with his troops, eats with them, and sleeps with them. This allows him to stay in touch with his forces because he shares both the good and the bad with those who serve under him, and they respect him and trust him. Hence, when the king honors him, the whole army feels honored. A successful general also maintains a good relationship with his superior. Without political support, the army will not prevail. So this is about, working with the people that you're trying to get on board. Not trying to put yourself above them, but trying to be a part of an ecosystem, a part of a shared goal. And that's that flexibility, that ability to treat people with respect and treat people as equals, I think, even when we're in leadership positions, can lead to successful outcomes. The line at the top, at the 6th place, says the great ruler issues commands, establishes states, and bestows feudal houses. Inferior people should not be employed. So this is about working with the right people for you, okay? Like making sure that you're working with people that have similar values, that have an ethical way of dealing with things, rewarding people that are loyal to you, and building your victories together. If you try working with people that don't share your values, that may have integrity lapses, it's easy to get sucked down in a difficult direction with them. So just be very careful of what you want to build, who you want to build with, and make sure that you're in alignment with them. Hexagram number 23 is translates to splitting apart, deterioration, stripping away, collapse, falling apart. Now this one talks about, it sounds scary, but I have found that this particular hexagram speaks towards stripping away old wood so that new sprouts can appear from that old wood. So this might be a good time to figure out what you need to eliminate to come to a more harmonious relationship. Remember, we're at the bending, we got Mercury and Venus at the bending of the nodes, moving towards the south node, a place of release in Libra. So how do we eliminate obstacles to harmony, to peace, to working together? Okay. So an old cycle might be ending around this period of time and a new one might be beginning. Okay. Devin says, what do you think about the Pleiades being the summer solstice stars these days? They heliacal rise on the summer solstice. Long ago, it was Sirius. So we are talking about the precession of the equinoxes or of the zodiac itself, the solstices in this case, where, so just to give context, Devin, each year the tropical zodiac, which is equally divided into 360 degrees, moves slightly from its backdrop of constellations and fixed stars. And we have since precessed to, in this case, and I'm going to trust your research on this because I haven't quite looked at exactly where in the sky things are rising lately. Probably should. That's a really good exercise to be able to do. But now we have the Pleiades in Gemini, right around that Gemini area, relating to the summer solstice rather than Sirius. And Sirius was usually marking out the summer solstice in Egypt with the return of the flooding to the Nile. And we have a really powerful new moon coming up in Cancer at 14 degrees of Cancer, which is very close to that fixed star Sirius. So we'll talk about that more in the weeks ahead. But with the solstices coming in Pleiades, I'd have to think about that more. But I think that the Pleiades are, I believe they are a nebula. So there is some blindness that has been associated with nebulas in the past. The Pleiades were 7 sisters that were being pursued by Orion the hunter. They were grieving the loss of one of their sisters. So maybe there is also a relationship with grief at these summer solstices, with it coming so close to the backdrop of the fixed stars of the Pleiades. There's also a relationship with that area of stars related to vision. Again, blindness, but maybe also inner sight. So those are some of the things that are coming off the top of my head. Stories of grieving a loss of important family member or someone that we consider family, something like that, or a loss of something collectively. And we've been doing a lot of grieving lately collectively. So I think that could be where we truly start getting into our feelings rather than intellectualizing those feelings, which sometimes we can do when we have a big stack up in air signs like Gemini, etc. So it's okay to feel that grief. It's okay to process that. And honestly, with the sun in Capricorn, feeling that loss and feeling exiled from a relationship or from the nurturing that once supported us could very well be a possibility. So that's a nice catch there, Devin. Okay, let's talk about the animal that we got here, and it's a caterpillar. So here is a beautiful monarch caterpillar that is pupating, that is going into this beautiful J formation that I have witnessed. Last year I witnessed my monarch caterpillars that I was raising. I sort of became a monarch daddy. I had some native plants that had monarch caterpillars on them, and they were kind of decimating the plants, and I took them inside and planted the plants and started getting milkweed for them, and as I was gathering more milkweed for the caterpillars, I kept adopting more caterpillars inadvertently, and I released about 5 of these Oops, I misspelled that. Hold on a second. Let's fix that. What do you say? There it is. There we go. Let's spell it right. Yeah, so I released about 5 of those butterflies out into the world, and that was super fun. And this point in their evolution is where they are shedding their skin and they go into the chrysalis, and they stay in that form for 7 to 10 days and then emerge as a butterfly. So caterpillar is teaching us about proper timing, proper stages of things. it teaches us that everything happens in its own time, that we can't rush the process. One of the lessons I learned raising monarch caterpillars had to do with understanding that if you don't have the right environment for that caterpillar, you aren't going to be successful in the transitions. I had one particular caterpillar that started pupating at a very inopportune time. Like, the environment I had was too small, and instead of compete for resources with the other caterpillars, it just decided it was going to start pupating before really I think it probably wanted to. And I had to like kind of attach it with it, and it fell off of, you can see there's a little attachment here to a stick that comes from that little thread that they attach themselves to. And this little guy, he failed to make the attachment, and I kind of used like string to attach him to the stick instead. And this happened twice, and one of them made it, and the other just completely didn't. And it was a hard lesson in having the right environment. And sometimes what we are trying to birth doesn't always make it. And that could also be part of the Capricorn story. The Capricorn moon story is in the harsh environment of a wintry mountain range. Not everything is going to make it. Not every dream, not every goal is going to be able to be nurtured to fruition. Now, keep in mind too, one thing that we haven't talked about is there's going to be 2 Capricorn full moons. So I just had a really nice talk with Melissa LaFara that should be posted on her Energetic Principles website in the near future. We talked about Cancer season. We talked about the 2 full moons in Capricorn. And this full moon might be the initiation of some energy, and the second Capricorn full moon could be the more of the fruition of that. So keep in mind that whatever themes you're going through here, there's going to be a second time around that's going to come. It's sort of a rare occurrence. I guess maybe it's called a blue moon, quote unquote, with two full moons in the same area of the zodiac. So this encourages us to pace ourselves. It encourages us to keep our projects secret. If a caterpillar becomes too visible, a lot of the times they'll hide on the underside of like milkweed leaves, like these particular caterpillars. If they become too visible, they'll get picked off by birds, you know. If you become too verbal or too visible with a project that you're trying to nurture into fruition, you might not succeed. Someone may steal your idea. Someone might, interfere on some level. And it doesn't do any good to be paranoid of that, but any artist will tell you that protecting something and allowing yourself to go through the process, sometimes without external feedback, can really help you bring something to completion. So I think these are the things that the caterpillar is talking about. And also just looking for your hidden potential. Caterpillars teach us about transformation. Maybe this Cancer season is not necessarily about revealing everything. Maybe it's about going within and saying, you know what, this is a time for me to do some internal work. Saturn retrograde, anybody? And maybe this is a time to grow behind the scenes for a future revelation, okay? Because there's a lot going on in that chrysalis when the caterpillar turns into a chrysalis. They will shed this yellow and black skin, in the monarch's case, turn into this beautiful green, iridescent chrysalis, and then their body is just basically melting and reforming. It's very mysterious and amazing, and probably kind of painful on some level, and they may not know. It's just instinctual. It just happens. So I think sometimes we have to surrender to the process and realize that eventually we will be able to fly as a beautiful butterfly. All right, Susanna says, I saw the video of your butterfly. Yeah, it was so much fun. I really enjoyed that process. Although I will say, in hindsight, the best way to support your native butterfly population, monarchs included, is to plant habitat. So that is what has been my focus this year, is just planting more and more habitat, more milkweed, more native plants that these animals will find delicious. And if you are a native pollinator gardener, seeing plants and insects eating your plants is actually a sign of success, because you have provided nourishment for the local populations. And I had brought these insects inside to try to protect them, but also try to protect the plants. But why would I even need to do that necessarily? Those plants were food for them, and just planting them might have just been a better choice in hindsight. Also, fair warning, if you raise caterpillars indoors and they're not exposed to natural light, they can have difficulty with their navigation systems when they migrate. So, because they haven't gotten in tune with the natural rhythm. So if you do end up raising caterpillars, they have to be exposed to natural light, or they'll get confused and they won't migrate properly. So another reason why planting habitat is definitely the way to go. But yeah, Uranus Ascending says, haha, there's your Virgo showing spell check. Yeah. I don't like seeing mistakes on the screen, especially when they're in large font. Absolutely. Susanna says, Melissa is also a Cancer Sun and a Moon Capricorn. Yeah, we talked a lot about the experience of being Cancer Suns, and Melissa had some really great insights into living the Capricorn Moon story. She and I connect really well because we both have Earth moons. I'm a Taurus Moon, Cancer Sun, so it was a really great chat. I got a little distracted halfway through because there was a storm coming through, and I was a little bit nervous that we were going to have a tornado. So you could see me kind of looking around in the middle of it, trying to make sure I didn't have to pack my cats up and go into the basement. So, but I would highly encourage you to check it out. There was a lot of great insights, both from, Melissa and myself here. All right. Stellar Rendition says, I feel like I've been in the melty goo phase for about 6 years. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that, my friend. Like, sometimes our transformations take a long time. Like, in the grand scheme of things, a human life is actually very short. So, and in comparison to some other life forms, it's very long. So it's all relative. But the Earth has been around a long time, and I think that in a culture of instant gratification, we've lost touch with being able to do things slowly. And I'm a proponent of slowing down and enjoying the ride. Jennifer says, I have a lot of milkweed growing this year. Do the caterpillars just climb it and start the J? So, Jennifer, there are tiny little eggs on the underside of the leaves most often that are smaller than a pinhead. And the caterpillars will emerge very tiny, like less than a centimeter, really tiny. And they will eat the milkweed. And then eventually, when they're ready, they will attach themselves with their own silk from their booty, and they will attach to some kind of stick or stable place, whether it's on the milkweed or on another branch. And then they will go into this J position. They'll start to turn greenish, and then they will completely shed their external skin and turn into that chrysalis. And then eventually, about a week and a half later, they will emerge as butterflies, dry out, and then fly away. So yeah, it's you can see them on the underside of milkweed, common milkweed, etc. And my recommendation, honestly, after raising them last year, if you see them on your milkweed, just let them do their thing. Like, nature is going to, not all of them are going to make it, but the strong ones will, and they will be set up to be able to live in their environments very well. Yes, sharing our tomato plants with the bunnies. Yes, Uranus Sunning. Yeah, I mean, it's frustrating when you are trying to grow things and you want to see the results of your work, but native plants in particular are very resilient, and even if they get eaten by something, chances are that they're still going to grow back. And that's something I've learned over a few years of doing this now. Yeah, definitely will check it out. Susanna says, nice. Dawn says, mine eat and then usually create chrysalises on the eave of my house. Yeah, they try to find really stable places to attach themselves to. And that's a lesson too, I think, with the caterpillars. When you're going through the significant transitions, you need a stable place to attach to, or it will be impossible to shed your skin. Like, that's what I noticed with the one that didn't make it. Because he wasn't able to attach to the stick, he didn't have the gravity necessary to help him wriggle out of his skin, and he got kind of stuck in his skin, and he started gooing himself within the old skin. And it's a lesson, I think, metaphorically, to have some stable foundations in our life when we go through changes. We have to find some stable perches to attach ourselves to while we're going through these changes. So, so many lessons from nature. And again, friends, if you hadn't heard the beginning, I'm extending my guided group study book club for summer 2024, the sign-up period. We've already had one meeting, but it was just an introductory meeting. There's still 7 more to go, and there's still spots available. And we are really reading an incredible book, Braiding Sweetgrass, which is teaching us how to connect with these natural cycles and the stories behind them. You can see the astrology all throughout it and the metaphors that would be very useful for understanding the planetary movements as well. And we've got a really great group, a really reflective group, and I'd be overjoyed if more of you would sign up and join us on that journey. It's going to be a lot of fun. So check that out on my website, spencermichaud.com as well. You can see there's a sign up there too. Payment plans available if you need some help with that too. I know that, economy's been a little funky, and we're all doing the best we can. Okay. My friends, that is about what I've got. Reverend Kai says, hi, I'll manage to get here at the end, but yay, caterpillars and native plants. Yes, that has been one of my passions. That has been giving me a lot of life and purpose, is creating that oasis for the native pollinator, insects, birds, butterflies, etc. I'm just finding a lot of joy in that, and I hope that all of you do too, and get outside and get into nature and find your center within it. Ani says, yes, thanks, have a good day. Reverend Kai says, Braiding Sweetgrass is a phenomenal book. I agree. Really enjoying that process and the discussions that it's bringing up. Don't milkweed. Yes, milkweed is important for monarch caterpillars. All right, my friends. I think that's what I've got for you today. We're coming in under the 2-hour mark. I think we had a good session. And do me a huge favor. If you are new here, easiest thing you can do is just like the video so that we get our information out to the most amount of people. Please the algorithmic gods. Do me a favor, if you're new, subscribe to the channel so that you know when we're going live again. We go live usually every Friday or so in the afternoon, around 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern Time. And you can check me out over at spencermichaud.com. That is a great place to sign up for a reading, or sign up for the book club, or to just check out previous live streams. And then go follow me at Twitter or Instagram or Threads at Spencer Michaud. Okay, friends, that's what I've got for you today. It's been lovely spending time with you. I hope that you have a wonderful weekend, that you have a wonderful Mercury Cazimi today, and that the messages that you receive are kind and helpful. All right, my friends, that's what I've got. We will see you the next time, and have a great afternoon. Peace.